Good morning, friends of the world. Welcome to the Boulder Boulder. It is the best day of the year here in Boulder, Colorado, and we are gonna have some fun. Let's go. Ryan Van Duzer here. I hope you're all having a great Memorial Day. I know this one is different, a lot different. We're used to being on the start line for the Boulder Boulder, and unfortunately that's not happening. But we can still run. That's the great thing about running. All you need is a pair of shoes and you can just run out your front door, and that's what I'm doing. The Boulder Boulder 10K has been my absolute favorite day of the year ever since I was a little kid. My first race was when I was 6 years old, just a little dude. I had never run 6.2 miles in my life. I didn't know what I was getting into. But as the race went on, I got hooked. I loved the music and the community and the cheering and the food and the stadium and the jets. The Boulder Boulder is all about family and friends and tradition. And yes, I like to train and I like to run fast, but to tell you the truth, that's the least important part. I love just being part of a very Boulder event. This race is the heart of the city. But since there's no Folsom Field filled with 50,000 screaming fans today, these Boulder foothills are gonna have to do. And I gotta say, it's a pretty good alternative. All right, my friends, I can't wait to see all of your VirtuALL races. And now for my favorite part of the day, the Memorial Day Tribute.
The first thing to remember is that we do this ceremony to remember those that can't be with us.
Honoring those who've served, and beyond service, honoring those who've given their lives to the country. And whether that's at the Memorial Day Tribute or it's the men and women that come out and run in our formation runs and run the race, it is to recognize ultimate sacrifice that many have paid.
I have the highest regard for Memorial Day. It's very emotional for me. 1 million Americans have died defending this country's freedom.
And it is the reason that we get to celebrate and have a free country. Happy Memorial Day, everyone. I'm Cliff Bosley, race director of the Boulder Boulder. I want to congratulate and thank the thousands of joggers, walkers, and runners who participated in this morning's VirtuALL 10K. Thanks to you, we've raised more than $16,000 for the Colorado COVID Relief Fund. Even though we cannot be together today, we feel called to continue the Boulder Boulder Memorial Day Tribute tradition. We're glad you're with us today to remember the true meaning of Memorial Day as we relive the pageantry, reverence, and stories of sacrifice from past Boulder Boulder Memorial Day tributes. In keeping with tradition, a familiar face of the tribute, Mike Nelson, will lead us through this special presentation of the Boulder Boulder Memorial Day Tribute.
The conversation with my grandparents and parents was about World War I. I mean, that was a catastrophe.
World War II broke out on December 7th, 1941, and I was 20 years old, and I signed up almost immediately.
My son, he and I were fishing one day and we were about 10 yards apart. He looked over and said, "Hey, Dad, thanks." I said, "For what?" He said, "Everything I've ever had in my life, I've had to work for, and you taught me that."
Peace and prosperity doesn't come without a generation that makes it possible.
Of course, Memorial Day to the military is always a very important day.
I've always felt it was a privilege to be able to serve a country that had a constitution that guaranteed rights to all people. Now, we've been a long time getting there, and we still have ways to go yet. But our Constitution, as it is written, is a thing of beauty, and it needs to be defended.
Welcome, everybody, to this special Memorial Day tribute. Like many of you, I'm sad that we can't be together today, but it's moments like this tribute on this very meaningful day that help us all keep connected during this trying time. So we thank you for coming together with us to remember those who fought and died for the freedom that we have today. Freedom, we know, is never free. Since our country's founding, over 40 million Americans have served in the U.S. Armed Forces, and over 1.5 million American warriors have paid the ultimate sacrifice to protect our shared freedom, and we are humbled and grateful. As he's done for the last 5 years, Stuart Boone will play our national anthem. Mr. Boone served in the 99th Infantry Division in the Second World War. During the Battle of the Bulge, he earned 3 battle stars and the Bronze Medal. He was one of only 11 members of his artillery battery of 68 soldiers to survive the battle, known as the Lucky 11. Mr. Boone has also volunteered his time to play taps at more than 1,500 military funerals. Please rise and join Mr. Boone in our national anthem. The BOLDERBoulder Memorial Day Tribute is a moment of honor, reflection, and patriotism, created to remember those who left their homes to defend our freedoms and they never returned. A 21-gun salute, taps, and the presentation of our nation's colors. Let us take a moment to pause and be reverent.
What an incredibly special day. We have you to thank in this venue as patriotic Americans from the great state of Colorado. Ready, aim, fire!
While this tribute remembers the lives lost, it also honors our past, present, and future military members.
And defend the Constitution of the United States.
Our most memorable moment, the mile-high skydiving team entering Folsom Field, each carrying a flag from a different military branch, as well as the POW flag, capped off with a 30-foot American flag, making a dramatic finale as it enters the stadium. This tribute gives 45,000 people the opportunity to remember and honor those who gave their lives in service to our country. Memorial Day is about honoring those who served and telling their stories of bravery and sacrifice. During his 25-year military career, retired Army Colonel Lee Van Arsdale held multiple leadership positions in 3 combat zones. As a member of Delta Force, he spent 14 years leading some of the most elite soldiers history has ever seen.
The sounds of the water falling in retired Army Colonel Lee Van Arsdale's backyard is his spot of solitude.
I enjoy this more than your average person would.
For him, the serenity here is much different than the streets of Mogadishu, Somalia, 22 years ago.
There was firing going on almost from the first second that we landed there. It was a total mess.
From the Joint Operations Center on October 3rd, 1993, Lieutenant Colonel of the time, Van Arsdale, closely watched Operation Gothic Serpent unfold. Many would come to know it from the movie Black Hawk Down.
We got 2 wounded, and we got both the pilots dead in the chopper.
We knew we were going into a hornet's nest, which is all the more reason why you get in and out as quickly as possible.
And that they did. Based on little intelligence, Task Force Ranger captured 2 of Mohammed Farah Hadid's lieutenants.
A group of Pakistani peacekeepers were ambushed and massacred in the streets of Mogadishu by Hadid's Haber-Gator militia.
And to get to Hadid to prevent him from killing more people trying to end the famine he caused, the U.S. found the people he relied on. But the successful mission is often haunted by these images.
What's been lost in the pages of history is that was a successful mission. We did what we set out to do. Don't confuse a tragic loss of life with mission success.
And what Van Arsdale says happened next to secure the location of the 2 out of the 5 crash sites defined the saying, comrades in arms.
They did everything that they needed to do to bring that helicopter down in such a manner that the people in the back lived. But in so doing, they gave up their own lives.
The heroic actions of both pilot Cliff Walcott and co-pilot Donovan Briley helped save the lives of 4 Delta Force snipers. A mile away, another selfless act. Outnumbered by thousands of militia swarming to the second crash site, Gary Gordon and Randy Sugart kept on firing back till their last breath. Their fight helped save pilot Michael Durant. And as the 17-hour-long battle went into the dark, Van Arsdale went to one of the crash sites to ensure soldiers don't get confused and kill each other. Eventually, all soldiers were picked up and brought back to base. His efforts that day earned him a Silver Star and a Purple Heart. But he says the true heroes aren't here to tell their part.
That's Randy Sugart and that's Gary Gordon. They were awarded the Medal of Honor.
Today, their faces, along with others who fought selflessly that day,
That picture just happened to capture 3 guys in the squadron that all lost their lives.
are on his wall as a daily reminder of a mission well done.
For me, every day is Memorial Day and every day is Veterans Day. So there's not a lot of time that I don't think of them.
Today, it is also important to honor and remember those who comforted our fallen service members at their moment of sacrifice. Lila Morrison of Windsor, Colorado, was a nurse in Europe during World War II. She wants people to hear her story so they'll understand the high cost of freedom.
Lila Morrison grew up in South Georgia, a small-town country girl. She was just 22 years old when she graduated from nursing school and faced a life-altering decision. America was at war, and the Army needed nurses.
They said if you girls don't volunteer, we might have to draft you, and that would be insulting to the nursing profession. So we decided to join.
Lila joined her mobile medical team in Europe, always on the front line, always in the face of danger.
It was pretty bad. We could hear the guns, and every time a big gun like a German 88 went over us, our tents, the roof of the tent would go whoosh, whoosh, and you thought sure it was going to blow the roof off, but it never did.
Before the war was over in Europe, Lila would witness a horror even greater than combat. She was on the team that provided aid at the liberation of Buchenwald concentration camp.
Being 22, I don't know if I felt the deepness of it or not, but it's never left me. I just couldn't believe you could treat one human another one.
Lila remembers clearly the sick horror of Buchenwald, too terrible to share here. But she also remembers a moment of unexpected appreciation.
I want to tell you about one young man. He was so happy. He just could hardly contain himself. He was so happy. He had a smile all over. And he said, oh, the Americans came in here and with their big tanks and they knocked that wall down and they said, you're free. And he just couldn't believe it. And he wanted to thank us.
Gone now is Lila's husband, Walter, who was a World War II combat veteran as well. Over the 65 years of their marriage, they quietly leaned on each other and learned to make sense of what they experienced during World War II. Today, Lila talks openly about freedom, and most of all, about the sacrifice of those Americans that defended it for us all.
So Memorial Day brings back a lot of those memories that most people don't have, especially now. And it's my desire to pass the word down. I don't want to be fanatic, but I do want them to realize freedom comes at a high, high price. And I see a lot of those faces that didn't make it, but they did. They sacrificed for us so we could make it.
As we remember our fallen, we also recognize the families who lost loved ones in military service, the Gold Star families. Christopher Doc Anderson grew up in Longmont, Colorado, and loved spending time outdoors and with his family. He knew from an early age he wanted to follow in his grandfather and father's footsteps and join the Navy.
In 2006, Christopher Anderson deployed to Iraq with the Marines as a Navy corpsman.
When the corpsmen first show up with the Marines don't call them Doc because they haven't proven themselves yet. And the Marines need to know their corpsmen are going to be there when they need them. Christopher didn't have that problem.
You know, he wanted to be a corpsman when he enlisted. You know, that was his thing, is he wanted to take care of people. He wanted to save lives. I mean, his mantra was, I'm going to win the war one Band-Aid at a time.
While on patrol, Sergeant Greg Edwards was nearly killed by an IED.
Sergeant Edwards, he lost both legs at about the knee and most of his left hand. And the guy said that they were getting ready to call corpsman up, which was what they say when there's an emergency. And Christopher had already darted across the street and was there. And Sergeant Edwards was telling him, tell my wife I love her, tell my daughters that I love them. And Christopher's, saying, no, you're going to tell them yourself.
Just a few months after Doc Anderson saved Sergeant Edwards' life, Christopher was killed during a mortar attack on December 4th, 2006.
I got a phone call from my dad. I knew what had happened, but I wasn't willing to accept it, so I pressed my dad and I was like, what happened? And he goes, I just need you to come home. And I asked him, is he alive or not? And he said no.
The events that followed the death and return of Doc Anderson included a memorial in his hometown of Longmont, Colorado, and then his final resting place in Arlington, Virginia.
One of the conversations he said to my mom was, when I come home, we'll have a parade. Everybody's going to be there. And loving her son the way she does, she's like, of course, of course there will be. And he got a parade when he came home.
That day at Arlington, there were a lot of folks there. That my family was there, my mother was there, and the big surprise was Sergeant Edwards being there. We didn't know he was going to be there. We didn't expect him to be there. Apparently there had been a discussion at the hospital. He said, I need to go to Doc Anderson's funeral. They said, you're not ready yet. And he explained to them, I'm not asking.
While Memorial Day for many is a once-a-year holiday, honoring those who have died while serving in the United States Armed Forces, it takes on an entirely different meaning for the Gold Star families.
I remember Christopher every day, but it's, I just want people to know that there's a lot of people out there that are in our situation or potentially about to be, and how important it is for a community to come together and support each other.
I'm not the only person that has lost someone, and I'm not going to be the last person to lose someone. And as a community, we got to help each other. We got to come together. We got to take care of each other every day. Memorial Day is a great reminder on how we can help each other on our everyday.
On this Memorial Day, we preserve the memory of the fallen, honor them for their courage and dedication, and thank them for their service in our country's defense. And we thank you for paying tribute with us today. To relive past BOLDERBoulder Memorial Day tributes and run highlights, visit us on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages using the hashtag VirtuALL10K. We are eager to see you at the next running of the BOLDERBoulder. From our family to yours, please stay safe and healthy.